Ed, you know what I think is going to happen in the next 10 years that's going to blow humanity's minds? It's this.
There's going to be a moment in the future where for every year that you're alive, science is extending your life for more than a year. Mm-hmm. And that idea is called longevity escape velocity.
It's so
and
good.
By the end of the year 2030, so in 5-6 years, we reach L.E.V. This is the motivation. You want to be in the best health you can to intercept this. Sleep, diet, exercise, and mindset, which are the number one things that can impact you right now. But what really matters isn't some clock and what it says, is how do you feel? How's your mobility? How's your mindset? How's your memory? And again, the double dividend from being an optimist, a longer life, and living a life that's more fun. Like you said, this is the most exciting time ever to be alive. The only time more exciting is tomorrow.
This is so good. I told you guys, there's not a wasted minute when Peter's on.
So, hey guys, listen, we're all trying to get more productive. And the question is, how do you find a way to get an edge? I'm a big believer that if you're getting mentoring or you're in an environment that causes growth, a growth-based environment, that you're much more likely to grow and you're going to grow faster. And that's why I love Growth Day. Growth Day is an app that my friend Brendan Burchard has created that I'm a big fan of. Write this down, growthday.com/ed. So if you want to be more productive, by the way, he's asked me, I post videos in there every single Monday that get your day off to the right start. He's got about $5,000, $10,000 worth of courses that are in there that come with the app. Also, some of the top influencers in the world are all posting content in there on a regular basis, like having the Avengers of personal development and business in one app. And I'm honored that he asked me to be a part of it as well and contribute on a weekly basis, and I do. So go over there and get signed up. You're going to get a free, tuition-free voucher to go to an event with Brendan and myself and a bunch of other influencers as well. So you get a free event out of it also. So go to growthday.com/ed. That's growthday.com/ed.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. So, do you want to live longer? Maybe a lot longer? And certainly healthier? Well, if you do, I have a guy. His resume's mixed. I got to be honest with you. A little bit of a mixed resume. He's only got a molecular biology degree from MIT. Then he went on to get his Harvard medical degree. Then he went on to get his MS. And what did you get your MS in at MIT after that?
Aerospace engineering.
Only aerospace engineering.
Building rockets, yes.
Building rockets. And then, of course, he's got the XPRIZE. He's got Fountain Life. He's an educator. He's an entrepreneur. He's a scientist. But I'm most excited about his work on longevity and the book that he's got out right now called the Longevity Guidebook, How to Slow, Stop, and Reverse Aging and Not to Die from Something Stupid. So I want to not die from something stupid, and I want to live longer. And he's probably the foremost expert in the world on this topics, among many other topics. I kind of call him like the Dos Equis guy, like the most interesting man in the world, at least for me. So let's pick that big brain today. Peter Diamandis, welcome back to the show.
A pleasure to be back, Ed. Excited to share with you and everybody, the incredible future we have on our health and our longevity.
My favorite thing about you, maybe of anything, is your optimism, whether it's AI or anti-aging or the future. It's that you have an optimistic outlook. And we probably should talk about that as it relates to living longer mindset, because it is a part of the book. But I want to start out, you're 63 years old. I know you've been asked this a lot, probably on this book tour, but I want to hear it from you. 63, but your actual biological age is actually 39. How do we know that?
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways to measure your biological age, and there's a whole set of epigenetic clocks that are measuring how your DNA is methylated, which relates to your age. But what really matters isn't some clock and what it says, is how do you feel?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, how are you physically? How's your mobility? How's your mindset? How's your memory? How are you looking at yourself in the mirror? And honestly, I'm at the top of my game. I find myself to have more strength in terms of endurance, my span of knowledge, my mindset in all of these things physically. So that is the single most important thing. I feel great, and I'm performing, and I'm running circles around my team of 20-something and 30-something year olds. And so in the United States today, just to put some numbers on it, the average lifespan, lifespan is how long is your heart ticking. Average lifespan is like 78, 79 in that area. The average health span of how long do you feel healthy? How long do you have the mobility, the aesthetics, the cognition, the ability to get out of bed, go do what you want to do, spend time with the people you love? That, unfortunately, is 63. And there's a 17-year gap, thereabout, 16-year gap between when people stop feeling healthy and how long they live. And the first goal we focus on is helping you feel great as long as you're on this planet. The second goal is extending that lifespan. Is, can you get to 100? Can you get to 120? Is it possible to get to 150 years old? And people say, I don't want to live that long. Well, let's be clear about this. If you felt like you were, when you were in your 30s or 40s, if you didn't have pain in your body, if you've got the energy, if you've got the cognitive ability, like, I want to go get another degree, I want to go start a company, I want to go see the world. If you had that the vitality, I think you would want to live that much longer.
It's the assumptions you made. You're right. It's a false choice. I had somebody yesterday, I was in New York yesterday, someone that you and I both know pretty well-known person, and I told him I was having you on. And that person is in their late 60s, and he goes, man, you tell him I don't want to live that long. And I said, that's predicated on how you feel right now. But if you felt like you did when you were 30, you'd want to do that forever. And by the way, those of you listening, and I'm going to ask Peter some specific stuff now, those of you listening that are in your 20s and 30s, I've noticed that when I do these shows, sometimes you're like, hey, yeah, that's going to be great for me 20 years from now. You can be making investments in yourself based on some of the things we're going to talk about today that can get you to that 150 number potentially based on all the things I've learned from Peter and David Sinclair and a few others. So if you're younger, you have an advantage because you can make deposits in your future rather than, making corrections later on. So let's talk about this. You take about 75 pills a day, right? I take about 50. And so what are some of the critical ones that you take every day? Either medication or supplements that you take. You go, Ed, if the top of my list is, let's just say NAD or whatever it might be, what would yours be?
So I'm going to give you a different answer because it depends upon your physiology, where you are in life, the testing you've done. So I do take, probably it's closer to 80 or 85 pills a day right now. At the end of the day, I test myself every quarter at least, and I'm looking at where things are, where are my blood biomarkers, where are my metabolomics, all of those elements. And then based upon that, I'm modifying what I'm taking. Now, in this book, Longevity Guidebook, I have an entire chapter on supplements and medications.
Yep.
And the point there is I lay out why I'm taking everything. Now, it goes back to the notion that years ago, there was a paper done in Cell, one of the leading publications of scientists in this field, and it looked at what were called the 9 hallmarks of aging, 9 root causes of why we age, right? Question is, why do we age? There are species of animals like the bowhead whale that lives for 200 years on this planet, and the Greenland shark that lives for 500 years as babies at 200 years old. And I remember when I was in medical school learning about this, I said, why can they live that long and why can't we? And I said, okay, it's either a hardware problem or a software problem. And we're going to be able to solve that. And I think this is the decade that we're going to have the tools, the knowledge, a lot of that coming from AI, we can talk about it, that we're going to be able to solve that. And so if you look at the root cause of why we age, that 9 hallmarks of aging was then expanded to a dozen hallmarks of aging. And in the book, I list all of them, like, for example, our stem cell populations throughout our body. You have stem cells in your brain, in your fat, in your bone, in your skin, throughout all the compartments of your body. But our stem cell populations drop by 100 to 1,000-fold less as we age. And there are things you can do to slow, stop, or reverse that aging. And so all the supplements are by category to address each of those dozen hallmarks of aging. And so I lay it out. I don't want to give that medical advice here. You should do the research. You can, ChatGPT is pretty damn good these days on helping you understand this, but find a physician, find somebody to work with, and come up with your own list. One thing that's important for folks to know, I think, to provide some background here, is our bodies were never designed to live past age 30. If you think about it, 100,000, 200,000 years ago on the savannas of Africa, you would be you'd go to puberty age 12, you'd be pregnant by 13. And then by the time you were 26, 27, 28, your baby was having a baby and you were a grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
And before we had McDonald's and Whole Foods, before we had this abundance of food, when food was scarce, if you wanted to perpetuate the species, the worst thing you could do is keep the older generations alive to steal food from the grandchildren's mouths. And so you would die. And so we find that human bodies typically in peak health in our late 20s to 30 years old, and then it's this slow decline. We have sarcopenia, our muscles begin to reduce. We have our hormonal balances begin to reduce from pituitary growth hormone, testosterone, all those things. Our stem cell populations begin to reduce. And so it's a slow glide down unless you say, no, I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to do everything I can to keep myself vitally alive, and supplement or provide, medication to try and maintain my physiology as I'm growing older.
I'm going to push you on that a little bit. So, by the way, everybody, Fountain Life can help you with that as well. One of the things that's literally probably saved my life the last few years, but certainly extended it, is getting my labs done every 90 days, which Peter just said. Just literally getting a good look. And by the way, having the right markers measured as well, which is not what everybody does. So I understand what you're saying. You're still not going to get medical advice on a podcast that millions of people are listening to. But and if the answer is no, just say no. But I'm just curious, is there anything that in general, though, you say most people should be looking at blankety blank?
Listen, there are things like CoQ10. There is magnesium, your magnesium levels. I do take NAD precursors like NMN. Again, the book lists them all. I don't want to pick out any one or two because you should understand what's going on inside your body. You mentioned Fountain Life. Let me take a second there, because one thing that's important for folks to realize is our bodies are incredibly good at hiding disease. I just want to stop and say that again. Our bodies are incredibly good at hiding disease, meaning that most of us have no idea what's going on inside our bodies. You think you're fine, you may feel fine, but here's some of the numbers. 70% of people who have a heart attack had no precedent, no shortness of breath, nothing that gave them a warning. It's like, boom, you have a heart attack. And then a significant fraction of those people die on the spot. It turns out that it's not your calcified plaque in your coronary arteries. These are the arteries feeding the muscle of the heart oxygen and glucose. It's the soft plaque that isn't picked up, that can evulse, can break out and like just block it in the middle of the night. And another thing is you don't feel a cancer in stage 1 or stage 2. You feel it in stage 3 or 4 when you end up in the hospital with a pain in your side. The doctor said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you've got, stage this or that going on. And unless you look, and people say, I don't want to look. And it's like, listen, you're going to find out eventually.
Right.
Do you want to find out now, or you want to find out when it's too late? And then the final thing that gets me is, the majority of all cancers that kill us are not the ones frequently tested for. So, breast and prostate and colon don't kill us. We find it in routine testing, but it's glioblastomas or pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, so Fountain Life created it with two incredible individuals, Tony Robbins. I serve as the chairman of Fountain Life, and Bill Kapp, who is the CEO. And we built these centers. We have 4 today in Orlando's our headquarters, Naples, Florida, New York, and Dallas. We're adding 4 next year in L.A., Arizona, Houston, and probably Miami. And these are diagnostic centers. You go there and you spend about 5 hours. We upload you. We upload 200 gigabytes of data about you. It's everything knowable about you to answer 2 questions. Is there anything going on inside your body you need to know about today? And that's a really important question, again, because your body is great at hiding it. And then what's likely to happen to you in the future that we can start to prevent, all right? What's your future look like medically? And so here's the numbers. In our first 5,000 members, 2% of people, 2 out of 100, have a cancer they don't know about. And they think they're fine. 2.5% have an aneurysm they don't know about. 14.4% have either cardiovascular, neurodegenerative, metabolic disease, and you're driving blind. So I go every year for my upload, and eventually I'm going to find something,
Yep.
and I'm going to say, fantastic, I'm going to solve it now, because the
Yep.
tools we have today to solve these things is extraordinary. So Fountain Life is my means for doing that. It's the diagnostic side. And then we're searching the world for the most advanced therapeutics. What's out there that can reverse aging? What's out there that can optimize your body?
Yep.
And we bring those in and make those available. So we're like the fiduciary. We're the one-stop shop for, if it's out there and it's low risk, high reward, we're going to have it for you.
Yep. Everybody, I just want to unpack a couple things. By the way, it's so great, brother. So thank you. A couple things I want to emphasize that he just said. One, there's a whole chapter in the book about these CT scans, or at least there's a topic in the book about it. And I just want to emphasize what he said, because he said a lot. You guys are obsessed in the medical world about these calcified plaques. It's the soft plaques that are the real scary ones, okay? And so this is something a lot of doctors aren't talking about, aren't looking at. It's literally just about calcified plaque blockages, and there's a lot more to be concerned about if these plaques can break off the softer ones. I know this just in my own case. I'll just leave it at that. And I also know in my own case the benefit of doing your labs regularly. And I'll just be transparent to the audience. I've been scared and concerned the last several months because there's been some things come up in some enzyme tests of mine and in some stool tests about my pancreas. And you get those numbers, they scare you, especially when you're not feeling great. And so then I went and had some scans done, and it looks like I'm okay on that. There's no prevalence of any tumors or anything like that. But I got to tell you, if there were, I'd want to know it sooner than later. And so this idea now of treating disease rather than being proactive, guys, this day and age is now a proactive approach. It's not a reactive approach. And if you're listening saying, I can't afford to do all these things, many of the supplements that Peter takes and that I take are relatively affordable. There are some treatments that aren't, but are relatively affordable. So I just want to emphasize that.
So, hey guys, I want to jump in here for a second and talk about change and growth. And, by the way, it's no secret how people get ahead in life or how they grow. And also taking a look at the future. If you want to change your future, you got to change the things you're doing. If you continue to do the same things, you're probably going to produce the same results. But if you get into a new environment where you're learning new things and you're around other people that are growth oriented, you're much more likely to do that yourself. And that's why I love Growth Day. Write this down for a second. growthday.com/ed. My friend Brendan Bouchard has created the most incredible personal development and business app that I've ever seen in my life. Everything from goal setting software to personal accountability, journaling, courses, thousands of dollars worth of courses in there as well. I create content in there on Mondays where I contribute, as do a whole bunch of other influencers, like the Avengers of influencers and business minds in there. It's the Netflix for high achievers or people that want to be high achievers. So go check it out. My friend Brennan's made it very affordable, very easy to get involved. Go to growthday.com/ed. That's growthday.com/ed.
Before we move off the stem cell thing, just from my own education, I want to ask you about this. I've been hearing more discussion, and correct me where I'm wrong, about exosomes and stem cells. And I don't think I understand the difference in the two. Can you just help those of us that don't understand?
Happily, sure. So first of all, stem cells, it's a type of cell that can differentiate and become any kind of cell. So a pluripotent stem cell, when you have a fertilized egg, that egg eventually becomes the 40 trillion cells that are Ed Mylett, right? And that cell becomes skin, bone, brain, kidney, liver, all of those different types. And so stemness is the ability of a cell to differentiate into those different kinds of cells.
Okay.
And we lose those stem cells. We lose those stem cells as we age. And so they are our regenerative engine. They're the cells that are there to replace cells that are dead or dying to keep the tissue vibrant and alive.
Okay.
Exosomes are little communication packets put out by stem cells. What do I mean by that? So these stem cells, these cells are exuding these small little vesicles that have growth mRNAs or messenger mRNAs and growth factors in them. And cells communicate with each other by putting out this exudate of these cells and these growth factors. And so you can get exosomes, which are the way a stem cell communicates outwards right? And so you can get those exosomes and just give the communication packages out there. So you see exosomes being used in hair, in skin, in wound repair. I'll give an example. I talk about in the book. I had both shoulders surgically fixed. I had some bone spurs and some muscle tears in both shoulders, and I had it done by the same surgeon 10 years apart. The earlier one, I did not do any kind of exosomes in there, and the repair, the recovery time was predictably what the surgeon said. 10 years later, I'm 10 years older, same surgeon, same other shoulder. I do it, but I do injections of exosomes into the surgical site on 2 different occasions. It healed twice as fast.
Okay.
And those are growth factors, right? And again, our bodies, as we're growing older, this is why a young kid who breaks something or tears something or injured, they recover so much faster. They've got those stem cells and those growth factors that are there to move it forward. There is a company I talk about in Longevity Guidebook. It's an incredible company I'm excited about called Immunis. And they have been able to harness these growth factors and these exosomes put out by stem cells into a new drug that's undergoing testing right now. I'm slated to go and participate in it next month.
Awesome.
Hans Kierstead is the CEO there, and his phase 1/2A study, he had 18 individuals, ages I think like 55 to 70, who had severe osteoarthritis. These people with pains in their knees, they couldn't walk. They're in bed, they're in a chair, and he gave them this injection of these 440 factors from these stem cells, these stem cell exudate, these exosome secretions, and so forth, and a few things happened. Number one, they grew their muscle 6% without exercise, which is amazing, right? I mean, it's unheard of. Number two, their pain reduced 50 to 70%. Number three, their overall inflammatory index reduced 50%, and they reversed their immune age by 30 years. Well, you're basically giving your body these signals that are making it youthful. This is the promise of what's coming.
Wow.
Now, I'm excited about it, and we're going to make this product and this advanced study available to all the Fountain Life members. So if you're a Fountain Life member, you'll have access to this at no additional cost, because we're going to be the research platform to partner with them. One of the things, Ed, that's important, you mentioned price earlier. And Fountain Life, it's $19,500 for the full membership, which comes with a doctor, a medical team, a nurse, a dietitian, a health coach for the full year, right? And so it's all the people surrounding you to help you take what you learned in your upload and then optimize you over the course of the year. We do have a product we're bringing online. We're demonetizing it down to $6,500. We're going to do it through companies called our core program. And so if you folks can afford it, fantastic. I can think of no greater investment than your health. But there's a lot of things that people can do for no cost, effectively.
What are a couple of those?
Yeah. So it's sleep, diet, exercise, and mindset, which are the number one things that can impact you right now. I'm going to take a second and on the mindset front. I want to quote something from my book here, because it's really important. I think folks need to realize the power of your mind over your body. And here it is. It says, in a study of 69,744 women and 1,429 men, published in the prestigious journal Proceedings, the National Academy of Sciences. You don't get bigger than that. It was found that optimistic people live as much as 15% longer than pessimists.
Gosh.
Right? I mean, it's like being an optimist has a double dividend.
Why is it? You think they're producing less cortisol in their body, or what would the reason be?
I think that honestly, our ability of our mind over our physical bodies is huge. We can will ourselves to die, and we can will ourselves to live. We've all heard of people who were madly in love and their spouse dies and they die a few months later.
That just happened, by the way, in my life. A great friend and the husband passed, and 6 weeks later, she passed,
Yeah.
relatively healthy prior to that. Can I ask you a
Yeah.
question about the diet thing?
Sure.
Just because you write a lot about it, and I appreciate, you know, your question on this about sugar.
Yeah.
The two or three people that I trust the most in this space seem to be, I almost say, like hyper obsessed about the topic of sugar in the body and its negative impact in the body. And so can you just express that for a minute? I don't think I totally understand why.
Let me be very blunt. Sugar is a poison,
Mhm.
unfortunately. Uh, as I go back to our evolutionary history, when we were evolving, genetically, we are the same as someone from 100,000 years ago. We have not evolved that much differently. There's been some evolution, but not a lot. And our body never evolved to take in as much sugar as we do.
Mhm.
We take in about 60 times more sugar per year than we did 100, 200 years ago in the diet.
Mhm.
And sugar, what happens is sugar coats proteins and it makes them inflammatory. So when you're raising your sugar levels in your bloodstream, it has two major impacts, well, three major impacts. One on your brain. So it is a neuroinflammatory, it causes inflammation. It is a cardiac inflammatory in your
Yeah.
heart, and it causes metabolic disease. I'll give you an example. We just are publishing the study out of Fountain Life again, covering our first few thousand members, in which we measured what correlated highest with heart disease. Was it LDL we hear about, or HDL, or triglycerides, or LP little a, or any of these other factors, cholesterol, et cetera? No. What correlates the highest with heart disease is your blood sugar levels.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's called your hemoglobin A1C.
Yep.
And so I wear a continuous glucose monitor,
So do I.
and I am watching what I eat. I mean, listen, I'm not a angel. I will eat something sweet on occasion. I will gravitate towards, 80% dark chocolate or something like that, which
Mhm.
actually has health benefits for you.
Mhm.
But I have this debate with Elon on Twitter all the time where he says, I eat donuts for breakfast. And go, you can do that if you want. When you
Yep.
turn 60, buddy, you're going to change your mind about this.
True. Do you do a glucose tolerance test with your labs?
We do. We do we also do a fasting glucose levels.
That's
Yeah.
what I meant. Actually, a fasting one. I'm just curious
Yeah.
if you personally do that. I know
I
you.
do it. I do it.
Yeah.
I do it on a
Okay.
regular basis. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
Okay.
I have this Saturday, I'm drawing my next set of labs.
Yep.
And I do this on a regular basis to understand what's going on. I'm really focused on reducing what's called my hemoglobin A1C.
Yep.
I want to get it down to 5.3 or below.
Mhm.
And stress can rise it. Well, that's my biggest challenge is I shoot for 8 hours of sleep a day. We can talk about that again.
Mhm.
But I'm operating at high intensity from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m.
Yep.
And
I
I'm
relate.
loving life. I mean, yeah, I know you can relate, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm loving life. It's the most exciting time ever to be alive,
Yep.
and so I don't want to miss a second of it. But so sugar is, when you think about diet, I think about a few things. Let me give a few pearls, if I could, for those listening, things you could do right here, right now. First off, when you sit down for dinner tonight, drink a full glass of water at the beginning of your meal, right? That's easy. The second thing is, don't sit down in front of, CNN, the Crisis News Network, or
Mhm.
take a second to actually take a deep breath in and out. That puts you into the parasympathetic, your rest and digest mode, so you can absorb your food. If
Mhm.
you're in a debate, if you're watching every murder on the planet on TV, it puts you into a fight or flight mode, which is the worst way to get nutrients. And then when you're looking at your food on your plate, um, eat your vegetables first. It's
Mhm.
eating your fiber that slows your digestion down.
Very good.
Eat your protein next, and then eat your carbs if you have room third.
Mm.
Just doing that, you'll lose pounds of weight.
Mm.
And so another thing is, listen, I only have so much willpower, right? I've got lots of willpower in the morning to get out of bed, go to the gym, get
Mm.
exercise, and so forth. At night, if I'm at a restaurant and they put like chocolate cake in front of me, It's like, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to touch it. Oh, you just try a little bit of it. And so the most important thing is it doesn't hit the plate in front of me. It's like,
Mhm.
nope, don't even tempt me. It's
I
easiest to
know.
say no
Mhm.
before it hits the plate.
Yeah, that's the
So,
truth. By the way, that's just amazing how we land on similar things. Like I wear my monitor, I do a fasting glucose test, but I'm going to make that change right now. I'm going to make that change of I do watch the Crisis News Network or Fox or whoever's on when I eat. That's not good. And it's interesting. I have a tendency to want to eat my vegetables first. Like genetically, I know I'm probably supposed to. And so I'm going to make those adjustments. Those are simple things, you guys, as are a lot of the supplements that are in the book as well. So, hey guys, it's a new year, 2025, and I know you're thinking, how are you going to make this year different? How am I going to build something for myself? And maybe some of you are dying to be your own boss. I could just tell you that there's behind the scenes in everybody's life that make things work for them. And for me, the behind the scenes for many, many years has been Shopify. Anything you see me doing online, somehow Shopify has their hands in it. Shopify makes it simple to open up for business if it's the first time, or to grow one you've got, or maybe it's just the time for you to scale your business in a different way. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates. No coding or design skills are required. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/Mylett, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Mylett, Mylett, to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/Mylett. Let's talk about the just the concept of something got me excited, which is L.E.V. Just overall the concept about what this means. So talk about what L.E.V. stands for and why we should all really be optimistic about this if we get our act together.
yeah, I mean, it's like get ready to celebrate this. So
Yeah.
the term LEV stands for longevity, escape, velocity. And it's a fascinating term. So if you look at human longevity over, thousands of years, it's pretty flat where, over the last 100,000 years, people lived to their late 20s, 30 years old. It went up in the 1800s up to like 40 years old. And it's skyrocketed, doubled to roughly 80 today. And we can see that science has added about a quarter of a year of lifespan for every year that you're alive, pretty consistently. And now the concept is, and this is proposed by Aubrey de Grey and Ray Kurzweil, that there's going to be a moment in the future where for every year that you're alive, science is extending your life for more than a year. And that idea is called longevity, escape, velocity.
It's so
And
good.
it is a powerful idea. Now, what's even more powerful is if you go and you ask some of the world's top experts, and I've done this, they're friends, I've invested in their companies, I've written about them, I have, they've been on my stages. Folks like Dr. George Church at Harvard Medical School, one of the most prolific scientists in the field, David Sinclair, who we both know, Ray Kurzweil, and you ask, when will we reach longevity, escape, velocity? Well, Ray Kurzweil, who has probably the most accurate predictions of any futurist and technologist, right? He's the futurist at Google.
Yeah.
If you look at Wikipedia, it's like I think it's like 86% accuracy rate for his predictions. He predicted when we're going to have human level AI and a whole bunch of things. Well, his prediction for when we reach longevity, escape, velocity still blows me away. He says by the end of the year by the end of the year 2030. So
Wow.
in 5-6 years,
Wow.
we reach LEV. When I asked David Sinclair and George Church, they put it at the mid 2030s.
Okay.
Which still means it's
Soon.
10 to 15 years away.
Mhm.
And so I think this is the motivation. You want to be in the best health you can to intercept this,
Mhm.
so that you're there when these new breakthroughs come out and you're in the best health. And for me, that's called my longevity mindset. I think
Yeah.
my longevity mindset is I'm going to get out, so one of the chapters is on exercise, right? And
Mhm.
I put on 10 pounds of muscle. You've got an incredible physique. How often do you work out?
Weights 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to add it, I bumped it to 5 days a week.
Mhm.
And it's something that I think is one of, your muscle is your longevity organ. It's one of your most important things. So
Mhm.
uh, I think LEV, longevity escape velocity, people need to have that motivation. Like, I'm going to stay in the best health. I'm going to get out. I'm going to go work out in the morning. I'm going to avoid the sugar. I'm going to
Yep.
focus on getting 8 hours of sleep. I'm going to switch to an optimistic mindset. All of these things. And then ultimately, not die for something stupid, because I think that's an important part, to the extent that a person can afford to do the kind of testing that's out there.
The last test I did, everybody, the day that I was there was a gentleman in the room in front of me, and they took him to the hospital as I was waiting to do one of my scans. He literally was taken directly to the hospital. And the reason that was the case is they found the beginnings of an aneurysm in his brain the day that he was there. And I was told months later that he lived, and that had he not had his scan done that day, that he likely would have either had a significant event or passed away. And so these are things. You were going to say something about that.
I'll say it. One of my business partners, a guy named Sam Nazarian, who is the founder of a number of hotels, including SLS. He and Tony Robbins have partnered on a large project called the Estates. And he's going to be putting Fountain Life centers into these 6-star resorts and 6-star residential developments. I said, great, why don't you come through Fountain and experience it? Now, here's a guy who has the best physicians in the world, and can afford whatever he wants. And he comes through the program, and he calls me and goes, I just got a call from the doctors. I have 2 brain aneurysms. And he was in surgery a week later. Now he's fine.
Yep.
But that's it. We don't know what's going on inside our bodies until we look.
I didn't think I was going to ask you this, but it just occurred to me because someone brought it up to me. Any thoughts about, like, I keep hearing more and more about zombie cells in our bodies. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Of course. And I talk about this again in the book. The book is intended to be a very digestible, you can read a segment at a time.
You can read a segment at a time, but it's actually a sit down and sit out at the pool and read for a day book also. You're not going to get it done in a day, but it's outstanding. And it's easy to read, in my opinion, on such an important topic. The brilliant things about him is he's the smartest guy in the room and never tries to sound like it. He wants you to actually understand what he's saying. But I just want to say that about the book too.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd written a book with Tony Robbins called Life Force, which is an amazing book, but it's 700 pages, and it's hard to consume a 700-page book.
Yeah.
And so I turned this book into a roughly 200-page book, where this is what I do and why I do it and the science behind it. And I put it all out there for folks to, to adopt what they want. There's an entire chapter on routines. I think routines we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's talk about zombie cells. So a human cell will replicate 50 times and then should have the decency to die. It's called the Hayflick limit. And so when cells replicate 50 times, in the normal course of division, at the end of that 50 replications, there are 3 possible outcomes. Number 1, they can die, make room for a young stem cell to create a new young cell that enters into your liver, kidney, skin, whatever. Alternatively, they can become a tumor cell. They can become a cancer, and they become immortal. And here's a key point folks don't realize: we're always developing cancers all the time. And our immune system, God bless it, we have this amazing brain, a very complex machine in our heads, but the immune system is almost always as amazing. Our innate immune system, something called natural killer cells, are the cells that are running through our bodies looking for a virally infected cell or a cancer cell, and then zapping them. And hopefully that happens. When it doesn't, that's when you need to be scanning yourself and finding it, because there are things you can do. The third option is they become a senile cell, a senolytic cell, a senile cell, or a zombie cell, sometimes called a grouchy old man cell. And they're sitting there at the end of life, just pumping out inflammatory factors, trying to recruit other cells to become inflamed as well. And there are new drugs called senolytics. The face cream I use and I write about in the book is called OneSkin. And these 4 PhD women discovered this 10 amino acid peptide that kills the zombie cells in your skin. And, I love the product. And anyway, so there are different approaches to killing these senile cells. You need some because they help in wound repair,
Okay.
but you don't want too many. And you can measure that today. You can measure how many you have in your body.
Step back for a second. This is so good. I told you guys, there's not a wasted minute when Peter's on. I know that some of you listening to this are like, this is great. It's two pretty affluent guys talking about these things that cost some money. There are a lot of things. Scans are a little bit different, but there's a lot of things, and some of the scans aren't expensive. But there are a lot of things you can be doing in the book in terms of sleep, hydration, your nutrition, supplementation that truly are not expensive. Probably even a realignment of money you already spend elsewhere, and that would infinitely help you extend your life until we get to this escape velocity that we're going to get to. And so please don't just discount this, that these are all things that cost money, because it isn't true. And that probably is an appropriate time to shift to the role of AI in longevity as well, because I know this is something you're really excited about. I had Peter on, guys, and we talked a lot about AI in a time where, kind of like now, where there's a lot of fear about it, a lot of concern, and maybe justifiable when it comes to income in the workplace. But when it comes to longevity, let's talk about AI a little bit, because this will benefit everybody.
Yeah, it really is. I think folks need to be excited about this. So here we go. AI is going to be the single biggest impact on human health ever. There was a study that just came out about 10 days ago in which it looked at physicians diagnosing a patient on their own, given a bunch of data, physicians diagnosing a patient using a chatbot, a large language model as their partner, and then the large language model diagnosing on their own without the physician loop. Interestingly, the numbers approximately were like 70% accuracy with the physician alone, 75% with the physician and the AI, and like 90% with the AI by itself. Why?
Why?
Because humans have biases. Humans have biases that will tilt the data because they've seen a bunch of cases. We have all these cognitive biases. Like if I've just seen a bunch of these cases in a row, I'm more likely to say, well, this person might have that as well. The AIs are not cognitively biased in that regard. Another thing which is interesting is that a study done as well, the American Medical Association, that looked at trust and empathy. And it found out that AI psychologists have a higher level of trust and empathy because you don't feel judged by the AI, and you don't have I'm sorry, I've got to cut us off, I have my next patient waiting. The AI will spend as much time with you as you want. So AI is coming, interestingly enough, if you think about this, some of the most powerful technologies in the world are free, like Google, right? I mean, amazing. Well, guess what? Gemini 2, Grok, when it comes on, Grok 3 from XAI, from Elon. We have Chat GPT and GPT-01, all of those, maybe $20 a month. But these technologies are going to become your diagnostician. You got the data, right? So Fountain Life is the place you collect the data. Other places you can go as well. You're ultimately going to be uploading data from your wearables to the AI doc that's going to be monitoring everything all the time. And another thing, I mean, I want to give you the scope of this. So our bodies are 40 trillion cells. Hard to understand that number. And every cell is doing about 1 billion chemical reactions per second. And so there's so much, as we sit here and talk and breathe and our hearts beating, there's so much going on. I mean, it's unfathomable. And there's no way that a human physician can understand all that. But AI can. And
What a great point.
and we're going to start to understand, why does someone, why can someone live to 105, let's call it, mentally sharp, going to work every day? And there's a good number of people who do that at that age. And other people are, in pain or dying in their 60s. What is it? It isn't random. There are reasons for this. And so we're about to have these discoveries occur. And
Do you believe that is mitigated, limited by your genetic predispositions to some extent. In other words, if a person with the best hand dealt to them might someday go to 150, that, gene expression or whatever might impact somebody like me who's got the cancer and heart disease and all this stuff right in my genes, that maybe that is limited to some extent.
There is a study done, and I quote it in the first chapter of the book, that looked at a very large population that were genetically sequenced. And the answer is that the population's longevity, in other words, how old a person would live, was attributed only 7% to your genetics.
Wow.
7%. The upper bound in another study that was done earlier, I believe the 7% one, was 30%. So at a minimum, 70% of how long you will live and your health is up to you. It's up to your lifestyle. It's what you eat. It's your sleep. It's your mindset. It's your exercise. These are things, and this is what gets me excited. This is why this book, by the way, I don't need money from selling a book.
Right.
I'm donating. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to the XPRIZE Foundation, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I make, if you buy it from Amazon, it's like $26, $27. All the profit there goes to the XPRIZE. My goal is get it out as far and wide as I can. And so if folks go to longevityguidebook.com, which is the website, you can get it for half the price on Amazon, plus a bunch of other bonuses. It's my cost of printing and shipping it to you.
That's
basically
great, brother. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm on a mission to help 1 million people, understand the power they have to become the CEO of their own health. That's my goal. It's like the greatest gift we can give anybody.
He is everybody. Peter and I have met multiple times. There are people that you have on their show, like this is like part of his life's work and a huge part of his passion. And he does not need the money from it. And thank God some of the most brilliant people in the world, like Peter, are enrolling and enlisting others of the most brilliant people in the world to really pursue this science. Really, 25 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people, if anyone, really talking about these things, never mind seeing these advancements. And people like Peter or David, even 5 and 10 years ago, were being told that they were exaggerating. And now it turns out these things are happening sooner and faster than even some of them predicted them.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Listen, it's the time of year where you want to make the next year one of the great years of your life. One of the things you should probably consider is therapy. Most successful people and happy people that I know are either in therapy or have been in therapy because it helps them get clarity, helps them unwind some things that are holding them back, and it gets them focused on the things that need to move forward. So whether you've got major trauma in your life you need to work through, or just a lack of clarity and focus in your life that you would like to get more clear on things and a sense of direction in your life, therapy is a great way to do it. And that's where BetterHelp is so great for people to learn different things. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, it's convenient, it's flexible, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists for any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/EdShow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/EdShow. What makes a leader? It's a tough question, but one thing's for sure. A true leader leads by example, and a true leader takes risks too. They plunge into life with determination. For those who lead by example and who approach life with a palpable passion, there's the Range Rover Sport. Each Range Rover Sport model offers a dynamic, sophisticated take on sporting luxury. The Range Rover Sport offers focused on-road performance and world-renowned off-road capability with industry-leading features like adaptive off-road cruise control that monitors ground conditions and acclimates to the present terrain. Agility, control, and composure are achieved with dynamic air suspension, and adaptive dynamics reduces unwanted body movements to deliver smooth and composed handling. True sophistication and excellent maneuverability, all in a seriously stylish package. Sophisticated refinement meets visceral power in the Range Rover Sport, a new dimension of sporting luxury. Build your Range Rover Sport at LandRoverUSA.com.
In our lifetime, next 10 years, that's in that window that you talked about earlier about the L.E.V. But that aside or anything, something you believe is going to happen in the world that's just going to blow all of our minds. Is it that we're going to have a society on Mars? Is it that we're going to have an ability to age every year? Or is there even something outside of that? We're going to de-age every year for every year we live. Something in that brain ears you go, Ed, you know what I think is going to happen in the next 10 years that's going to blow humanity's minds? It's this.
All right. I don't think there's just one. I'll give you 3 or 4 real quickly.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, we are going to extend the healthy lifespan, the health span, right? How long you're healthy, to over 100. I think the breakthroughs are going to come there. Secondly, I run this abundance summit every year, and I have some incredible people on stage this year. One of them, Max Hodak, who is the co-founder of Neuralink with Elon. His work is connecting your brain to the cloud. So being able to think in Google, being able to like understand quantum physics, being able to like become a master in chess, being able to do any of these things just by thinking, right? And I've seen his work, I've seen the tech he's built, and it blows me away. We're going to be
Wow.
rockets, hundreds of people living on the moon in the next 10 years. We'll have the first boots on Mars. Flying cars and autonomous cars, all these things are like just, going to become child's play compared to, we're living, I've had a chance to have Elon twice on my podcast, my Moonshots podcast, and we were talking last time about how fast AI is moving. His prediction is that by 2029 or 2030, AI will be more intelligent than the sum total of 8 billion humans.
The sum total of 8 billion humans.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So what is possible when you've got AI at that level of intelligence, right? In 2024, we saw AI reach an IQ of 120 from GPT-01. And I expect by one of my predictions for 25 is we'll reach an IQ of 140. And so this will be the mechanism by which we understand the complexity of the human body, that we begin to learn how to extract CO2 out of the atmosphere, out of the oceans, by which we learn how to do the things that we dream about doing.
We would make a mistake today, though, if we didn't talk a little bit about the microbiome, at least a little bit. So
Absolutely.
So let's let you go on there.
Before we dive in there, I just want to say, I'm so happy to have this conversation. You are my mom's favorite podcast.
So great. Hi, Mom.
So shout out to Mom.
Hi, Mom. Thank you. She's so smart. Now I get where you got your brains from. It's clear.
So your microbiome, I said you're a collection of 40 trillion cells. That's not actually true. You have 40 trillion human cells. We also have on the order of 100 trillion other organisms that are hitching a ride with us in our oral microbiome and our gut microbiome. These are bacteria, these are fungi, these are viruses, and we are a community of organisms. And we're learning that your microbiome is extraordinarily important. It will determine, your microbiome can determine whether you put on weight or lose weight, whether a drug works for you or doesn't work for you. It impacts your cardiac health, your neural health, all of these elements. So you can now understand your microbiome. One of the technologies I write about in the book is a company called Viome, whose products I use. And they built their technology from Los Alamos Labs. So we know Los Alamos as the place where Oppenheimer built a nuclear bomb, but they also did other advanced work. And they said, if we're ever struck by bioterrorism weapons, we need to be able to understand what hit us. And so they developed a technology for looking at not the DNA, but the RNA, ribonucleic acid, which is, it tells you what genes are being expressed. Long story short, what Viome does is it takes sample from your mouth, from a finger prick, and from your stool, and it's able to understand what's going on, your transcriptome, as it's called, in your body. And it tells you what foods are healthy for you, because not all foods are identical for everybody. If you don't have the right, bacteria in your microbiome, you may not digest something, or it may create a chemical that's not healthy for you. So I use Viome to analyze my diet. It also analyzes my oral microbiome. I have a whole segment on my mouth. Like I pay much more attention to my oral microbiome
Right.
than ever because your mouth is a direct passageway to your brain
Your
and to
heart.
your heart. Yeah,
Yep.
amazing stuff.
Yeah. I think, because time's limited, I know my audience is going to want me to ask you, and I know you can't be too specific, but there are chapters in the book on hormones. And I'm just curious about, when we talk hormone stuff, I'm always worried about the younger listeners because I end up getting men, especially who are in their early 20s or mid 20s, that now want to go get jacked on testosterone because they're seeing all these fit guys like you that are 63 years old and probably have concluded maybe they've had some supplementation with exogenous testosterone. But your thoughts overall on any
Measure, and there's an ideal range for your testosterone level. Typically in the 700
Mhm.
to 800 range.
Mhm.
I have done some testosterone supplementation, and then I stopped. I didn't feel any different,
Mm.
and I wasn't treating. My numbers were fine, but
Mm.
it was like, do I feel different? The one thing they have to be careful about is if you do supplement testosterone, you can blow your hair out. Right?
Yeah.
You can lose your hair.
Your
So
DHT will go through the roof if you've got a predisposition.
you have to do the research. There's drugs like finasteride you can use to
Mhm.
counter that, but don't be surprised if you're pumping testosterone and it's not healthy for you to drive it through the roof. What is healthy for you is working out 5 days a week.
Mhm.
I talk about in the book when I was putting on 10 pounds of muscle last year, I was like 150 grams of protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight, using 5 grams of creatine every day, creatine to supplement, my muscle building and so forth. And that's the way to do it. It's work. Hopefully we'll see if this Immunus product from Hans Kierstead can increase your ability to add muscle, but there's very few, do it for free. And one of the things, let's just talk about it, the GLP-1 drugs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Ozempics and all.
Yep.
Uh, I write about it in the book. I want to share my thinking on this. Uh, it's miraculous for people who truly are significantly obese, where
Mhm.
their greatest health risk is their massive obesity.
Yep.
If you're just, if you have an extra 20, 30 pounds, Ozempic is not your get out of jail free card. If you're going to use Ozempic, be aware that a lot of the weight you're going to lose is muscle,
Right.
which is a problem.
Yep.
And what
Is
happens
that
is
simply
people,
because you're just eating less and not getting your protein intake?
yes, it
Yeah.
is that.
Yep.
And what happens is people like, oh, I lost weight. Fantastic. Well, you've lost fat and you've also lost muscle. And then when you stop the Ozempic, are you going to take this for the rest of your life? If you stop your Ozempic, you put on the fat, but not the muscle.
Mm.
And so it's got this negative connotation. Now, one of the most smartest things I heard, and this is from our chief medical officer at Fountain Life, Helen Messier, who's brilliant, is listen, if you're going to take Ozempic, use it for a period of time and use it to develop good habits.
Yeah.
And again, I have an entire chapter on routines. It's like what I do every day on a routine basis. And habits and routines are the way that you don't negotiate with yourself in the morning. It's like
Amen.
this is who I am. This
Yeah.
is how I eat. This is how I exercise. This is how I sleep. And you build these routines and they become your greatest friend. I never thought about routines earlier in my
Yeah.
life, but now
Yeah.
it's like one of the most important things.
Well, same here. And I just think there's a value prop in your life of doing difficult things. And when you rob yourself from doing difficult things, you cheat yourself from all of the ancillary benefits of the confidence that comes with it and the strength that comes with it, the belief, the mindset changes that come with it. But just things that people are doing that I wonder if you understand the value of or appreciate or believe in the value of, rather, not understand. What about red light therapy?
Mm. So I do it. It's part of my routine. So, I talk about my routines at night. My routine is to be cruising towards sleep, starting at 9 and in bed and
Mm.
hopefully out at 9:30. So
Mm.
my day begins the night before. If I can get to sleep at 9:30, My body wakes up at 5:30. I've got my 8 hours of sleep. When I get out of bed, the first thing I do is first of all, the very first thing I do is while I'm in bed still, I say gratitude. Thank you for the amazing day ahead. Thank you for, giving my energy, my life, my family, and all the incredible things I have. And it's just starting the day with gratitude is like, I literally jumped out of bed and go, get back in bed, focus on my gratitude
Same
before
here.
getting out, because it's important. And then I will do about 20 minutes of red light therapy while I'm meditating
Really?
in
Okay.
the morning. Yes, I use a red light cap on my
Yeah.
head for keep my hair growth going.
Mhm.
I use a red light mouthpiece for
Mhm.
oral, and I use a red light full body panel. And it's
Wow.
really about energizing. It's about maintaining skin youthfulness. It's stacking these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, so do I, everybody. Just want you to know our routine on that is very similar. I want to say one thing before I ask him the last question. You should go get the Longevity Guidebook. I would just go get it. It will be reading that will benefit you, whether you are 22 or 82. There are elements of this book that you should know. And I did read it in 2 full settings, the part that I got, the digital copy that I got. And I recommend it. I recommend you do that in your life. Obviously, this interview has been incredible, but there's a lot more in the book that you're not going to get out of today's interview. I can't have you on and talk about the XPRIZE because I think it's one of the greatest things
Oh, thank you.
of the last
For
2
asking.
decades. And so I just want
Yeah.
you to be able to have the floor and tell us a little bit about the XPRIZE and what you guys are doing there right now.
Yeah, sure. I'm so excited. So, it's 30 years old this year. It's hard for me to believe.
Wow.
I started the foundation 30 years ago. Feels like yesterday. And we've launched 30 X prizes, about $600 million in competition. So what is it? I read one day that Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic in 1927, not on a whim, but to win a prize. And so this Frenchman offers up this $25,000 prize for the first person to fly between New York and France. Long story, amazing book, Spirit of St. Louis, Pulitzer Prize winning book. And I'm like, interesting, a prize. And he doesn't pay any of the losers. He only pays the winner. And so I'm a young space cadet. I'm passionate about space. It's like what I want to do. I think humanity is on its greatest adventure ever. And so I organize a $10 million prize for the first team who can build a private spaceship carrying 3 adults up into space, land, and with the same ship, do it again. Now, this is way before Virgin Galactic or SpaceX or Blue Origin or any of these companies. This is when only the government thought about space. But I was sure commercial was the right way to go. And it was won in 2004. It took me 6-7 years to raise a $10 million prize purse. And people told me I was crazy, and that just fueled me forward. It was won in 2004 and really changed the entire landscape. And on the heels of that, we built this incredible foundation. And every year we launch 1 or 2 major prizes. Again, we've launched 30 over 30 years. The total cumulative prize money has been about $550 million, I think is the exact number. And it's driven about $8 billion in R&D by all the teams trying to compete to win the money. Last year, about almost exactly a year ago, we launched one of our largest prizes called the XPRIZE Health Span. And this is a competition in which we have asked teams to come up with a therapy in 1 year or less, Ed, will reverse your functional age by a minimum of 10 years, a goal of 20 years. So I give you this therapy for a year, and then you have the ability to build muscle that you had 20 years ago. You have the cognitive clarity, the scope of memory, the mind that you had 20 years younger. You have the immune system to fight cancer and fight viral infections that you had 20 years earlier. And so we launched that competition. I raised $141 million. It's a $101 million prize purse. I'll explain why it's 101 in a minute. But in the first year, we have over 500 teams competing for this.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. And I've seen the stuff. It's incredible what these companies are doing. It's like crowdsourcing genius around the world.
Gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the first major sponsor is a wonderful guy, Chip Wilson, who was the founder of Lululemon. And he says, so Peter, listen, I'm willing to kick in like 35 million towards it. I want you to find others to come in. I'm a donor to the prize. We have an amazing group. Hevolution is a major sponsor as well. Anyway, so Chip goes, how much is Elon's prize for pulling carbon out of the environment? And I said, Chip, it's 100 million. He goes, can we make ours larger?
That's awesome.
I said, if you put the extra million in, buddy, we can make it 101
I
million.
love that, man. I'm so excited about you in the world. You're so good at this. You guys, don't you wish you listened to something like this more often than you do what you hear in traditional media or even social media every single day? The acceleration of transformation on this planet the next decade, thanks to thought leaders and philanthropists like Peter, is the greatest time ever to be alive. And I hope that in listening to this show today that you share it with people that, by the way, want to live longer. That's the most important thing, but also want a more optimistic and truthful view of what the future of the world's going to look like. And this needs to be out there more. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, thank God for you, brother.
Thank you. You know, our traditional media, we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. And so if it bleeds, it leads. And so if you open your newspaper tomorrow morning, count the number of positive stories and negative stories, you know, it's 10 times more negative. It's not that that's the only thing going on in the world. That's what you're being fed.
And remember this, by the way, when Peter's talking, he's been right for decades. So when you're listening to this and you go, what a neat dream. No, go back and listen to 10 years ago. And people are like, this guy's kind of nuts. Turns out he wasn't. It turns out he probably won't be this time either. I just wanted to validate my enthusiasm about all of this.
I just want to thank you. And again, the double dividend from being an optimist, right? A longer life and living a life that's more fun. Like you said, this is the most exciting time ever to be alive. The only time more exciting is tomorrow.
That's so good, you guys. This is a show you should be sharing, everybody. You know, when Peter comes on, I really get really excited. My producers will tell you. And then when we're done, it just exceeds my expectations. It's just, we're going to have him on every year if he'll come back. I told him that last time.
I will. I'm grateful for you having me on the show. And thank you for all the work that you do, buddy.
Yeah, I love you, brother. And thank you to Mom for her high praise. Okay, everybody, you've got to go get this book. Go get the Longevity Guidebook, How to Slow, Stop, and Reverse Aging and Not Die from Something Stupid, so you can stick around to see this world continue to change and transform people's lives. God bless you. Peter, thank you. Share the show, everybody.